Hi.
Hey, Melissa.
Did you see I was like in your comments, like, I'm here.
I'm so sorry. I'm like an 80-year-old with.
But between the two of us, I am shocked that
No, I'm
and
so thrilled it's finally working.
I'm trying to get this thing to not keep spinning on this tripod. Hold on. You can see my office in the meantime.
Oh, wow. That's your office. I see.
There we go. Okay,
No,
that
it's so
should
good
work.
to see your face.
Hi.
Seriously. And I'm so grateful to you for doing this, really.
I'm so happy to see. What are my bangs doing?
You look beautiful. You look
Ugh.
great, as always. During the first attempt, I introduced you as the glamorous, beautiful, wonderful, and hilarious Melissa Rivers. So,
Thank you. Hold on, I gotta get a pillow to sit on. Because the glamour never ends.
so no,
Okay, I'm back. Here we go. Is that better?
Gorgeous. Perfect.
Okay.
You look great.
I felt like I was like falling out of the frame.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Hi.
But you look.
I know.
Hi.
Like, tell me to stop fussing with my bangs. Sorry.
You look wonderful.
Thank you.
And how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Really good. You know, I've used this time as an opportunity to start this new interview series. And my mom was the first guest. Leslie Jordan, who I'm sure you've heard of, was the second guest. And Cleve Jones, who's this big gay rights activist, was the third guest. So, you know,
where are your parents like hunkered down?
Well, they send their love, by the way. And in fact, my dad, I don't know if you can see, he says, "Hi, me," from Bangkok.
You know what? They live the most glamorous life.
I have to say, I mean, when I tell people that they live in Bangkok, people go like, "What? Like, what is that about?" But you know, I think, yeah, they've always been like very adventurous and open-minded about trying new things, and they're doing really good. You know, the country, Thailand, is super experienced with this kind of stuff. Obviously, you know, Asia has dealt with stuff like SARS and, you know, all these diseases before. So they're doing good, but it's tough. I mean, you know, it's
Did they want you to fly over and be with them?
When this thing first started, we talked about it, but you know, even, you know, we get to talk 3 or 4 times a day on FaceTime, and we've managed to stay in touch, and I'm happy here. I mean, I live in my own little bubble, and you know, West Hollywood isn't such a bad place to be during this period. You're in LA?
I'm in Santa Monica. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think we're going to be fine. I just think it's going to be another month or two of weirdness, unfortunately.
It is all crazy.
Yeah. I mean, is your son there with you, Cooper?
Yes, it is. He had to come home from college. He was in his freshman year at Ohio Wesleyan playing lacrosse. Just like everybody else, the season got canceled. And he's home. It comes out of its room to feed.
You sound like my mom, the way my mom talked about me when I was in college. And still,
yes, it comes out, it feeds, it goes back in.
Well, I mean, it must be nice though. I mean, to have that, you know, and I always say, like,
I'm an only child, Cooper's an only child, and you're an only child. So you know the bond. But I said to a friend of mine today, I feel like I'm living with like a hamster. It sleeps in the morning, it gets out, it comes out, it stretches, it feeds, it goes back in, it comes out. And then usually around, I don't know, 10 o'clock, it's foraging and blasting music and on the computer and playing video games. I'm like, I feel like I should put like a wheel in there for him to like run on.
Yeah, well, I had a very similar relationship with my mother, and I think now we're on better terms. Like, I think I'm still occasionally probably a little, you know, not as nice as I probably should be, but you know, I think as you get older, and I'm sure this was the case for you, you know, your relationship with your parents and your interest in spending time with them and interacting with them improves, you know?
Absolutely. But also, just like anyone, like my mom could send me from like 0 to 60 in no time. I mean, it's just part of the relationship. I don't know anyone whose parents don't at one point send them around the bend. Yeah. And you know, I think Cooper's probably having a similar experience being a son to a mother rather than a daughter to a mother. It is a different experience. And we're very, very close. I had major separation when he left for school. And everyone said, just give it 3 weeks. Give it 3 weeks. Give it 3 weeks. And because, the first 3 weeks, he was like, bye. And, and then, can I come home for a weekend?
Yeah.
And I'm home. Starting. And I have to say, like, as much as I was like, no, you're fine. Secretly, I was like, yes, he misses me.
Hey, I understand. And now I understand it from the other perspective, because when I left for college, I was like ready to go out of there. And my dad later, and my mom later, said that like that was like one of the toughest periods of their lives. And I was like, really? And they were like, yeah. I mean, my dad was sort of a stay-at-home dad for a long time. And I remember the day I left, he was like, I could tell he was upset, but he was like, oh no, I was really devastated, And I think, but yeah, I mean, now we talk all the time, and I mean, thank God for this. It's great to be able to talk to friends and family. And
I admit, I literally for like the first month slept with Cooper's pillow.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, it was really, he would be horrified that I'm saying this, but you know what? He's doing really well. I think it's an adjustment for everyone being home. I think it's a huge adjustment for college kids, college students to come home. Probably, I think more so for freshmen who have just had their first taste of total and complete freedom.
And then
back
you go.
And there's rules again.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, no question.
So, but we're doing a divide and conquer, which is good.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, speaking of my mom and dad, my dad specifically, I know that I'm sure, I wanted to talk a little about how we got to meet each other. And I think my dad has said before that you've known him since you were a kid, basically.
Yes. Your dad was like the coolest. Like there was another family and my family and your dad's family, and they were all friends, and and our friend Gavin DeBecker. And everyone, would all do things together. And your mom, your grandmother.
Yep.
And I just remember and I was young. I was probably, when I first met him, around 10 or 11. And he was so cool. He was like, oh my God. Like, he was like the coolest, human being alive. And then when he and your mom started dating, and then my very first concert, and I went with the other family's kids who were older than me. One was already in college and one was already in high school. And I was like this little human being, was at the Greek, the Beauty and the Beat tour.
Wow.
And I remember I got a t-shirt, and let me put to you, this is how little I was. I got like the adult small and could sleep in it because it was so big.
That's so cute.
Yes, it was the Beauty and the Beat tour. How about that? And I remember we got to go into the dressing room because of your dad. We were so cool.
That's so amazing. Yeah.
And this is how far along it was. I think it was Jane, when we walked in, was on a payphone attached to the dressing room wall.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that would have been, I think Beauty and the Beat 40 years ago next year, which is insane.
Isn't that crazy?
It's insane. I mean, and what's funny is that I know.
Yeah, it was my very first concert. I think I was like 11,
wow.
10 or 11.
Wow. No, and I mean, it's weird because I know you had the connection through my dad and his side of the family. And then my mom, I know, was on Joan's show a bunch of times, did The Tonight Show, and Joan guest hosted, did In Bed with Joan, which I think is where I met you, I think, for the first time.
Yeah, but you remember, we all knew your mom originally through your dad.
Got it.
So it was always like, yes, it's Belinda Carlisle, but it's Morgan's wife.
Right, yeah. And
your mom, which is fantastic, because that means that you like the person for who they are, not what they are.
Totally. And, you know, I remember at some point I was, you know, on Google and I found an LA Times article about my dad's 30th birthday, which Joan and Edgar, I think, attended together.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, which was amazing. So there are all these funny connections over the years. And, you know, I got to meet you, and I met your mom at the In Bed with Joan taping. And I wanted to show you this. This is a copy of her book that she gave me, which I actually posted this on Instagram a month or two ago. And it says, I don't know if it's backwards, but it says, to Duke, I don't know, I hate everyone except Duke. Much love, Joan Rivers. P.S. In his time, your grandfather was hot. So that's one of my prized possessions for sure. And,
well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I always
then you and I were dates.
Yes. And so I guess that last time I think I saw you in person was March 2016.
Yeah.
And that was for Nancy Reagan's funeral service, which of course was a solemn occasion. But I have a couple, as I'm sure you do, some really funny memories from that experience.
Starting with, we had no idea where we were supposed to sit, so we sat in the back, and they came and they brought us up there. We were sitting next to Mr. T.
Yeah. Oh my! I mean, I think that day, that experience was one of the most surreal, maybe the most surreal day of my life.
And by the way, and so moving, and such an incredible event to have been privileged enough to be a part of.
Oh yeah. No, and the fact that not only Mr. T sitting next to us, but one of my favorite parts was when we got pushed into an elevator and we had no idea where we were going. And we look up, and literally the only other people in the elevator are Arnold Schwarzenegger, Maria Shriver, Caroline Kennedy, and Tom Brokaw.
Yeah.
And it was like, what?
And it was pouring rain. And I remember you and I like ran into this area that we did not know was like this special area. And all of a sudden, and that was because Ron had grabbed us and pulled us in.
Right.
How we ended up in that area was still beyond me.
Oh yeah.
And then when Ron mentioned my mother in his eulogy, I just remember you and I are like, I guess we're supposed to be sitting here up front. I don't know.
Well, you were anyway. But
you were a great date.
Thank you. I thought we had, I mean, considering it was of course a solemn occasion, I thought we had a good time.
Yeah, especially when one of our mutual friends perhaps had a cocktail or two too many.
Oh, I don't remember. Oh, I kind of vaguely remember what that was.
Yes.
I do. Okay. Yeah. No, I know. I do remember. It was in the post reception. I remember that. Yes. I know. Yes. Okay. Now I know.
And we were like, uh-oh.
It was very awkward. Yeah.
Yes, it became very awkward.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know, nothing like weddings and funerals.
I mean, seriously. I think it was my first funeral, oddly enough. So it was quite a funeral.
It's going to be hard to top that when with the Marine Corps band. I mean,
yeah. And when they had, I remember when the former presidents and first ladies came in, and it was Michelle Obama, George and Laura Bush, Jerry Brown being governor at the time. I mean, it was just like so
Hillary
surreal.
Clinton.
Hillary Clinton, right? Of course.
Because I was surprised at how that she was that Hillary Clinton was much smaller than I thought she would be, and how incredibly tall Michelle Obama was.
Right. Yeah. I do. I remember that. And she was standing next to Jerry Brown, and Michelle was towering over Jerry Brown, which I thought was.
But it really does. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. You see those people, and you just are. It really. You're just like, holy shit! It's like seeing a movie star if you're not around movie stars.
Absolutely. I don't know if someone actually just wrote in the comments, whose service was this? I think I said it was Nancy.
Yeah, it was Nancy Reagan's service.
But for those of you who didn't hear, or if I didn't say that,
yes, your father and my mother had relationships with Mrs. Reagan.
Yeah. My dad worked in the Reagan White House, and obviously your mom was very close to the Reagans.
It's that old California group.
Yep, absolutely. Um, I was going to say, speaking sort of politics, obviously, I know a question you've probably gotten a lot, and I know you've gotten a lot, is, obviously the fact that you and your mother both knew and, were on The Apprentice with Donald Trump. And I'm sure it's been an interesting experience, especially with what's going on with coronavirus, seeing him in action. And I was just curious if you had any particular thoughts about him and the way that this whole thing has transpired.
Well, it's been since the campaign, and the hardest thing for me, and I like to say I live in the great purple majority. I am socially very liberal. I probably go fiscally a little bit more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be called a country club Republican. For years, it was called a California Republican. I really believe most of our country lives in the middle. Mm-hmm. I do not, it's the alt-right and the alt-left that make the most noise, but I really do believe people want logic and fairness.
Mm-hmm.
And, I live, right dead center. And that's where my parents lived. Obviously both my parents were very outspoken about civil rights. And my mom was the first one who ever did an AIDS fundraiser back when it was still called gay pneumonia. So very liberal all over the place. The hardest thing for me, and people don't understand sort of what it means, but I still to this day cannot quite get my head around that the person that I know is the person I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. For me, there's such a massive disconnect whenever I see them at the White House, whenever I see the press briefings. I keep looking and going, no, like it just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. Because the story I always tell is when we were doing the Celebrity Apprentice and we had the finale live, and Cooper was maybe in second grade, and he came back with me for the live taping, and his teacher had said, if you get a chance, like, because he was missing school, if you get a chance to talk to Mr. Trump, interview him. Like, okay. So I said to Donald, I'm like, hey, this is like, and Cooper went back and forth the whole time I was doing the show. So he was there a lot. I said, look, can you give him 5 minutes? He wants to he has to, for school credit. Can he do this? And he said, sure. And of course, Cooper got completely overwhelmed and tongue tied. He was teeny.
Wow.
And Trump said, okay. And Cooper had the phone recording. He goes, ask me this. And Cooper would say, so how did you start in business? And he would say, well, Cooper, that's a very good question, and answer it. And then he would say to Cooper, okay, now ask me this. And then Cooper, and here we are in the middle of literally 2 hours before a live show, the finale show. And he took the time to do that with a grade schooler.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't get my head around that this is the same human being. And it's very, and it's very hard for me because I keep wanting to go like, oh, come on, he's not really president. You know what I mean? Come on.
It is still kind of surreal when you see him like in front of Air Force One and the Oval Office and everything.
But, and I think a lot of people, and especially in the beginning, a lot of people who were socially friendly with him took a lot of grief for maintaining the friendships, but people do have reasons for staying friendly. Now, have I spoken to him? No. Do I have people in my life that do see him and I send my regards? Yes. Do I get regards back? Yes. But I make it a point to just stay in the lane that I'm happy in, which is the middle.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that most people are in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's, and I think you're right that it's interesting how the Republican Party, even like when and I know I've gotten a lot of flack because, I've in the past said complimentary things about Reagan and I do recognize, of course, and my views have evolved a little bit where I really get why people were upset about the way he handled the AIDS crisis and all of that. But I think it's true that even he, compared to today's Republican Party, would be considered a liberal on
everything.
immigration and all sorts of areas, So Gerald Ford and Nixon even was pro-environment, pro-civil rights in a lot of respects. So things have changed, over time.
And I also think that, it's so frustrating because I'm Gen X and my son is Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of lively discussions because I think it's important to engage in conversation other than just where I'm happy, which is gossip and who's dating who. I mean, let's be honest. I'm very happy in the shallow end of the pool. I'm very happy there.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But we do try and have lively discussions about stuff. And it's so interesting because I feel like people are being held to a different standard from actions in their past through today's lens. Mm-hmm. And I always think about that. And people keep saying, like, what about your mom? What would your mom say? And I've been posting some of my mom's joke cards. I've been doing like a joke card a day on my Instagram.
I wanted to ask you about that because I love that you did that. It's fantastic.
And
so cute.
I'm having to so carefully curate them.
Yeah.
That it's so frustrating because it's like, no, those cards she was so funny and so outrageous and did not care and was an equal opportunity, she started her show with a string of racial epithets and then would say, and we're all something. Can we now move on? I've said everything I could think of. Can we now move on? Hey, yeah. I'm on say hi.
Hi.
What's up?
What's going on?
Nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you, child. Yeah. It came out.
What?
It brought me water.
Oh, that's so sweet.
But going back to what I was saying is, I feel like I have to curate it. Mm-hmm. Where half the stuff that we go through and we find is rolling on the floor, funny.
Yep.
But dare I put up some of those jokes? And I have found very frustrating.
Well, look, I can relate because I consider myself a big liberal, and I'm very, I'm very, passionate about obviously gay rights, but civil rights, women's rights, and all that.
Yeah.
But occasionally,
my dad was an immigrant.
Right. Yeah.
I'm first generation on my dad's side.
Yeah.
Both my mom's parents were immigrants. Obviously, I'm hugely for immigration.
Yeah, and it's like a tough thing because it's like even though I'm all those things, I have a pretty occasionally, dry, sarcastic, whatever sense of humor. I watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I watch these shows where occasionally, and I have a sense of humor where, occasionally I laugh at a politically incorrect joke or something, or I'll make a politically correct joke, but now you have to be really careful, and it's true. I think I saw when I was doing research for the interview. Something you said recently where you were like, PC culture has gone a little bit over the top, and so
we've forgotten how to laugh, and laugh at ourselves, and that is so frustrating. Probably because most of my humor is very self-deprecating. People are like, "How is it different?" My mom was sarcastic, and I'm sardonic, and if you don't know that word, go look it up. So I think it's very frustrating because, especially if you ask me all the time about with comedians, how would my mom be doing in this? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or was she already at a point and so established that she could still say whatever she wanted? But it really is hard that I constantly, every week, I look at the list of jokes, and most of the ones I actually want to use, we can't.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in engaging in things when you just want to. My mom used to always say it's actually a Winston Churchill quote, which is, when you make someone laugh, you give them a mini vacation. Mm-hmm. That's a very bastardized version of the quote. And there's days that I just want to say, oh God, it is all so grim. Mm-hmm. Every which direction you look, can we all just laugh and laugh at ourselves for a minute?
You can't win. It's like, you know, no matter what you say, somebody's gonna take offense, or, you know, and it's like, Jesus, like, you know, it's true. It's like we need humor more than ever. And, you know, Leslie Jordan, when he was on, I said to him, you know, he's blown up recently. He's gained like 2 million followers in a month from these videos he's done on Instagram. And I was like, you're doing a public service with these videos, because we need people, and such as yourself, that have a good sense of humor. And
by the way, someone just wrote, sardonic doesn't mean what I think you think it means. By the way, brilliant Princess Bride reference. If you were were intending that.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah, it was funny. But no, anyway, yeah, I love the Jones joke cards post. They're great. And I also see that you're doing a new podcast. You've done Melissa's group text. I don't know if it's
Rivers group text. Everyone says, like, why the name? It's because it started with I have, you know, 2 sets. It's all the same people, but we have like 2 different. We used to have one big group text going, and now we've moved on to a larger one on a different platform. But it was all my good friends from college. We all make each other laugh. Luckily, it's a very funny group. We've all been friends for 30-something years. We all say terrible things to each other. It's any given. Someone once said to me after being at dinner with all of us, "Oh my God, no wonder you're insecure. You guys are all so mean to each other." And I'm like, what are you talking about? And we were always talking about a million different things. So I'm like, I want to talk about stuff that I find interesting, like our group text.
Well, so are the I mean, I've listened to a couple of them, but is the actual conversation as brutal as it is in your group text?
Oh no, because I have actually real guests, you know, and I always feel like when you're a guest, you have to be not kind, but you have to not be necessarily.
You don't know how people are going to take
cutting at someone. What I'm going to say to one of my guests is not what I'm going to say to one of my friends. I mean, we're all on this humongous, this humongous group chat right now, and on this other platform. And someone just posted a picture. Someone just said they were doing something with their kids, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm impressed or terrified. You know, it was, and then everyone starts chirping in. It's that kind of a thing. A friend of ours just posted pictures from, you know, of like them with their perfect children. I'm like, you know what? Nobody likes you. I don't like you, and I don't like your children.
Yeah. No, and it's perfect. And I totally relate, because, you know, like I have a best friend who I've known for years who, you know, and I've had other friends like who've seen us interact, and they go like, whoa, like you guys are really like harsh with each other. And I'm like, well, but when you know somebody for a long time and you have that kind of like, you know, it's all in love, and it's all, and my mom and dad are the same way. I mean, you know, I've learned from the best. I mean, my dad has a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor. And, you know, so I think when you have that intimacy with somebody, you can talk like that. But you're right. Like, it's harder when it's just a guest you've never met, or someone you're not that comfortable with. You know?
Yeah, you can't, you know, I mean, sometimes I do wish my show was more confrontational, where I felt like I had the, not the ability, but the right to go after someone. But I think maybe I was just too well raised. If someone's your guest, they're still your guest.
Yeah.
You know, but there have been a couple of people that I've wanted to call out during the show, and I'll do it in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there's 1 or 2 that I'd like to go one-on-one with again, and do it as a separate little like mini edition. But mostly I try and you know, again, a lot of times we're talking about very serious topics, but we laugh.
Yeah.
You know, we did a whole one on mental health that I was laughing almost the whole time.
Yeah, totally. And so you've been doing the podcast, the Jones joke card posts. Are there other projects that you're working on at the moment?
Well, yes. Thank you for asking. I literally just this week closed the deal for my next book.
Wow.
So,
congratulations.
Yes, and my podcast is going to be, the announcement's coming up. I am joining a very exciting new podcast group. that's
Wow.
about to launch. And I'm
Fantastic.
super excited. I'm super excited how fast it's growing. We started it at the Emmys, and we did a little bit of hit and miss, no publicity, no anything. And the numbers are just flying up, and it's so fun. And I
Fantastic.
love doing it.
Fantastic.
And I'm super excited about you'll enjoy that. You'll appreciate the title of my new book.
I was going to ask you about it.
It's called Lies My Mother Told Me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
And
amazing.
but people will know it's a humor book. It's not a biographical book. One editor loved it, got on the phone with me talking and was like, wow, your mom really told some big, tall tales. I'm like, you know that I've made all these up. For example, I wrote a whole, with my writing partner, who is like my favorite human being alive, we wrote a whole thing for the proposal about the first Thanksgiving. And that there was a lot, according to my mom, there was a lot of confusion and a lot of mistakes. And Plymouth Rock was actually the Plymouth Rock. And what people didn't know was it was actually a gay bar. And right. And someone was like, wow. I'm like, oh my God, I would have to be on more medication than I am. That was really it. So I'm excited. It's going to be my first sort of straight humor book.
That's fantastic.
And I have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful writing partner who is my favorite collaborator. And we also always have a very strong editor to rein us back in.
When it steps a little too.
Oh, we go places and it takes tangents. We always go the scenic route. I mean, there's just.
Yeah, well, that's what a good editor does, I guess. They bring it back on track.
It's a lot like, as I used to say, being with my mom was like, and working with my mother was a lot like curling. I used to have to run ahead with the broom and make it keep going in a straight line. I
love that analogy of
yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. But no, I mean, that's so cool about the new book. And I mean, I know you've been insanely prolific, and even in the last like 3 years, I think you've released 2 or 3 other books, and the podcast, and I mean, you're a power.
And have gotten Fast and Police on and off the air, and wrapped it up, and I like to be busy. It gives me time. It gives us time to not really think or delve deeply into our own psyches, where we'll really figure out how damaged we are.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
I don't want to know. I absolutely know how fucked up I am. I don't need anyone to tell me.
No, it's true. It's like I think the reason that I'm doing better with this now than I was a couple of weeks ago is now I'm working on things that, keeping me busy. But like the first week or 2 of this, it was not easy. It was depressing, and you're right. You're like just sitting around thinking too much and like over analyzing yourself.
Absolutely. I actually hit a really big wall on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And just kept getting on and off of calls, and now with Zoom and all this, and I would like hang up and I would just start to weep. And it lasted. This morning it happened yesterday, and then it happened again today, where all of a sudden I just started to just cry.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we all hit the wall in different ways.
Yeah. 100%.
And in different timing.
Yeah, my mom has had bad days too. Like just where I'll be like, "How are you?" And she'll be like, "Not great, today." And she just you don't really know why that particular day it affects you. It just does.
It does.
And when you're someone like her or you that are always usually out and about doing things, and it can be it's a real transition. It
is, and I'm trying. I also feel so badly for my son and all like the high school seniors that missed their proms and their graduations, and all the college kids that got their you go to college for 4 years and you don't get graduation, or your freshman year is cut short. And because I do have a college athlete whose season got cut short, it was devastating for the seniors.
Yeah. What sport does he play?
He plays lacrosse.
Lacrosse. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. You know, I mean, I was watching Gavin Newsom's press conference the other day where he said, like, you know, we may in the next like couple months start allowing people to go to the park again, or go to like restaurants with half the capacity, you know, so start working towards going back to normal. But he said, like, we're probably not going to have major sporting events, you know, college sports or professional sports for a long time. We're not going to have concerts. You know, most of my mom's shows are probably canceled for the rest of the year. So this is not going back to normal for probably till next year. This whole year is screwed.
If then, and I think about that with Cooper, what is going to be the new normal? You know, he's such that at the beginning of his sort of adult adventure being, you know, and what's going to be the new normal? And we were talking about that at dinner the other night, and I said to him, I'm like, it's up to you guys. Your generation is going to have to fix it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry. You know, all our generation can do now is be vocal. And basically, which a lot of people are doing, which is great, is throw money and resources and or sweat equity at it. Mm-hmm. But any real change, especially in the government, is going to have to come from Gen Z.
100%. Yeah. It's
but yeah, what I find fascinating, which is Cooper's like, I find politics revolting. You know, he's like, it's awful, it's dirty. Who would want to do that? Who would want to open themselves up to that? Who would want to live that kind of life of endless frustration? Mm-hmm. And I get it, but that's a little
endless frustration.
It's a little disheartening to hear.
Yeah. No, you know, and it's we live in such a cynical time, and 100% I get why, and you know, and that's why I actually you know, I will say though, on the other hand, because of Trump and because of, you know, I think there are, on the other hand, a lot of Gen Z people who are, and you know, Gen Y, Gen Z, who are, you know, becoming more politically engaged, or at least politically aware. So I mean, there's a downside to it where people, I think, are just, you know, over it and ready to check out. But I hope that, you know, people take the other route, and that people, you know, engage as opposed to disengaging. Because if we don't engage, then we're never guaranteed that things are going to go down the toilet, you know?
Right. And we did talk about that. We also talked about in our family, there's a history of giving back. And that is part of the legacy of our family. And that he's naturally inclined to it, but to never remember that is one of the expectations of him.
Mm-hmm. Right. And politics is not, like, electoral politics is not necessarily the only route. You can make a difference through philanthropy, through a lot of different things, even through entertainment. I think you can change, like your mom did. You know, she used her platform to talk about issues that she cared about.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, so I think you're right. I think a lot of millennials and Gen Z people feel like there's other ways to make a difference than just through the traditional political system.
You know, the Gen Zs are still babies.
Yeah. So it's the Gen Ys. I'm
it goes X,
Gen Y,
millennials, Z.
Right. So it's in order. Yeah. And no, I wanted to ask you, I know that one of the guests you had on your podcast recently was one of the guys from Tiger King.
Yes.
So I had to ask you.
Oh my God.
What your thoughts are.
Did you watch it?
I did.
What'd you think?
He is like, you guys did a great job. And I mean, he is such a character. I mean, my God, all of those people are from that show. I knew you'd have an interesting perspective on that. You know, I mean, it's weird. I mean, of course, I think it would have been big anyway, but the fact that we were all in quarantine,
oh my God,
this show has become the biggest show on earth.
They were on the cover of People magazine. People wait their entire careers to maybe get the upper box picture. And people don't understand, there's the main one, and then there's the little box at the top, which was like the secondary cover, or what almost became the cover. People wait their entire careers for that, and they get a people cover.
It's just it's mind blowing.
It is.
And I watched it first, and then I told my mom and dad, you guys have to watch this. And so they're obsessed now. We're all obsessed. But so you've been watching it?
I finished it. I watched the whole thing, and I still have friends who are getting caught up.
Yeah.
So I've been saying to them, they're like, well, which one was on your podcast? I'm like, I can't tell you until you finish the show, because it's a character that maybe where they are hadn't been a part of it yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, my mom and dad watched like I think the first and second episode, and then they were like, because they were like, this is horrifying, and I was like, trust me,
it just gets
way worse.
It just gets.
You're not even like touching the surface.
No. I mean, it is something. It is something.
It certainly is. And are there other like movies you've watched or books you've been reading during this whole thing that you're?
I read a lot of nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
Always have. I was a history major, so I read a lot of history. I never read John Meacham's second to last book about Our Better Angels. So I actually am I reading that, but I also have it on tape because I listen to it when I'm working out.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'm going back and reading, I never read Doris Kearns Goodwin's last book either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back and read that as well. But then I read a lot of, I just finished Flea's book. I'm kind of all over the place, but I read primarily 99.9% nonfiction.
Mm-hmm. Me too, actually.
What are you reading?
Well, actually, speaking of John Meacham, I actually read a book he wrote about George H.W. Bush, which was actually really good. He's a great writer, John Meacham. I mean,
people were like, who would you love to sit next to at a dinner? I'm like, John Meacham.
Yeah.
Like, if I ever met him, I would full on fangirl. I watch, like, if you like John Meacham, if you go on YouTube, if you want to treat, punch in John Meacham and Doris Kearns Goodwin, and there's one where he interviews her.
Wow.
For the last book she had come out. Like, I'm like a John Meacham fangirl, which is shows how dorky I really am.
Well, see, I almost felt self-conscious mentioning that I read a George H.W. Bush biography.
Well, what people are, Meacham is the one that gave the eulogy at his funeral. That was so moving. He is such a brilliant writer, as is Doris. I mean, we do live in a time where we have amazing historical biographers and historical, writers.
Mm-hmm.
Right now,
Mm-hmm.
really, and if you have an all or a fan of history, I can't remember who wrote Hamilton. That Hamilton was based on. We live in a time with amazing writers who. This is the time to be reading history, because we clearly are repeating all the same mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And these are intensely readable, entertaining books.
Mm-hmm.
Or listen to them. I mean, they're in, and obviously you and I have similar tastes, but there's so many books on plagues that you can read.
Oh yeah. And that's why I had that guy, Cleve Jones, who's a big AIDS activist from the 80s. He created like the AIDS quilts and everything. I think it's important and to use this time to inform ourselves about the past. And I really think, if you read a lot and you learn when watching, YouTube videos, listening to podcasts that are informative. I understand why people get bored, but on the other hand, I mean, the more you read and inform and use this as an opportunity to enrich yourself, I think, I think that's one of the few silver linings, like that we have this time to do that, because usually we're so busy, we don't have the ability to to sit down and like learn new things.
But I will be honest, I still do read TMZ every day. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, hey, my mom and dad and I are constantly sending each other Daily Mail articles.
Oh, I get those too. Daily Mail's best.
I love the headlines. I love like the way they write their like they're. I mean, it's I don't know who writes these articles, but like the way they refer to people, like when I don't know some actress is wearing a bikini, they'll be like her perky posterior and all these like weird phrases. But then when my mom and dad and I are together, we'll like read the articles aloud to each other. It's just like it's a ritual.
Oh, and page 6 has been on fire.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's like you do have to balance it out. It's like you can read a biography by Doris Kearns Goodwin, but then to balance it out, having a glass of wine and reading some Daily Mail or TMZ you need that for your brain to like turn off once in a while.
Like I said, I will paddle down to the deep end of the pool, swim around for a little while, and then backstroke my ass right back to the shallow end and have a cocktail.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. But no, I'm so grateful. I know it took a little more of your time than I'd asked for, but
really I've got anywhere to go.
Yeah. Well, nevertheless, I know you've got a book coming. You've got your podcast that's getting bigger and bigger. So I'm really, really grateful. It's so nice to talk to you. I haven't laughed this much in a long time.
Me either. Let's try and get together in person when all this is over, and obviously send your parents my love.
I absolutely will, and they send their love.
You are doing amazing things, and everybody I hope knows.
That means a lot.
You ran for office. I hope you're gonna do that again. You are being an activist. You are absolutely like doing good in the world. Thank you.
That means the world to me, and for sure, when this is over, my mom and dad are hopefully gonna come in later in the summer into LA. So when they do, we'll all get together. That would be great. So, awesome. Lots of love. Thank you. Bye.